Greetings, salutations, and it's Ballista Gauntlet time. So, because of issues we've had in the past, instead of reading it off here in game, webpage time. So, Ballista Gauntlet. Notably, not ballistas. But I digress. A new event is coming to the Elder Scrolls Legends, introducing the Ballista Gauntlet, where the lane you choose to deploy your creatures matters more than ever. Compete against other players until you reach 9 wins or 3 losses, whichever comes first. Each run through the gauntlet will cost 1 event ticket, or 150 gold. 3 runs. In the Ballista Gauntlet, the field lane, that's the left lane, and the shadow lane, the right lane, have been replaced. On the left is now the Ballista lane. Whoever has the most creatures in the lane, if I remember correctly, it's at the start of your turn, it will deal, and again, this is if I remember correctly, 2 damage to your opponent. On the right side is the library lane. It will reduce the cost of actions by 1 magicka as long as you have a creature in said lane. Will you fight for the more aggressive Ballista lane, or make the most of your actions in the library lane? Can you make the most of both? Your deck building skills will decide. Rewards are earned with each victory, and player performance is tracked on the leaderboards. Place high enough in the ranks at the end of the event, and you could receive additional rewards. Cool. Alright. So, left lane, damage to face. Right lane, actions. So, realistically, I started thinking about a couple different decks. And the first thing that came to mind was Conscription. And that terrified me. That terrified me a lot. So then I was like, okay. So you need to be able to fight Conscription with 2 drops to control the early game. And you could play Conscription. But 2 drops to contest the early game. And some way of controlling their late game. So I sat back and I was like, alright, what decks came out and really gave Conscription a hard time? And, well, the answer is Rage decks. Conscription typically pretty good at handling a lot of the early control. Or, sorry, the early control because you then rely on your late game. Or dealing with the early rush decks by having early drain creatures. Doesn't help now that Wisp and other drain creatures were added. So, I've come up with 2 decks. First one is an Ebonslay deck. So I'm going to go ahead and... Boop. There's no cat, so you're not really missing anything. The core of this list is similar to the old Ebonslay. Now, I have to specify that because there was a newer Ebonslay deck that came after this that was just greed, 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 oh, and I run rage. This one is strictly a combo deck of ramp. I chose not to include Ramp Mother. What's her name? I chose not to include Pureblood Elder. You could put in a single copy, should you so wish. But I chose for the more complete combo, which is ramping to something reasonable. But then here's where it gets interesting. Archer's Gambit. The deck was initially too powerful. So Archer's Gambit got nerfed to cost 3. If you control the library lane, it will cost 2. So immediately some of your actions are getting cheaper. Scout's Report, it could be free. Rapid Shot, could be free. Feldu for some of the combos with Archer's Gambit. Could cost 1. Squish the Wimpy. Could cost 1. So you could play something like a Cicero into the Shadow Lane, and then play a 1-cost Squish the Wimpy to go ahead and clear. I made some changes. Unicorn is in here for charge combos with Venom Tongue and Cicero. Also Elena, because you could play Unicorn, play Elena, clear a creature, Elena gets charge, clears another creature. Because of Unicorn, I have opted not to run any Vipers. as I don't feel they're required. Let's see, what other shenanigans does this have? Fell the Mightiest, a single hard target removal. Hallowed Death Priest for the mirror match. Support removal, we are running a total of, I think, 4. The 2 Dushniks, the Shadowfen, and the Belligerent Giant. I didn't feel we needed more than that, as supports don't currently impact the board. You might see a Fervor, but you've got answers to it on curve, on ring on curve. If they somehow get it cheaper and get it out on turn 3, you've got an answer with Dushnik. I don't know how they'd get it out on 3, but if there's a 3-cost support that you need to get rid of, say, for a market deck, you could clear it that way. There's a fair bit of drain in the list, so early on you're looking at Barrow Stalker. Later game you're looking at using Squish with Night Shadow or with Night Talonlord. With the ramp, you could probably pull those off on curve, or even before curve. So on curve would be turn 7, again playing it to the Shadow lane. Sorry, Library lane. Or 10 with Night Talon. Sorry, turn 9 with Night Talon, because you would be trying to ramp early. For ramp, we have a mix of Tree Minders, Venom Tongue, and I chose to put in Determined Supplier. Because we're ramping, I think we can rely on Ornamented Sword rather than the 0-cost Improvised Weapon. Also, Ornamented Sword functions as a 2-drop if we're struggling for 2-drops early game. Also have, I think, a single Snake Tooth Necklace floating around in here. There it is. To controls Conscription, well, you beat Conscription with Rage. Just no way about it. You run the new Rage, play a big creature. If you have a creature in the library lane, Unstoppable Rage costs 7, not 8. Debilitate would cost 6 or less if you've gone face. This takes a good advantage of the library lane, and you've got enough creatures that if your opponent's trying to flood the Ballista lane, you're able to take control of it. And if your opponent's gotten full control of it, you can use your lethals to ping it down and try to control it that way. This is not what I will be playing for the event. This is what I expect to be the most powerful deck, though. What I will be running is, so thinking through the next iteration. So I try to think in a couple iterations forward. Boop, we're back. A couple different ways forward. If the first kind of wave is Conscription, then it kind of morphs into Ebonslay. The way we saw that go with previous metas is Ebonslay then trended greedier and greedier and greedier as greedier Ebonslay beats less greedy Ebonslay. Not always, but as a general rule. I have opted to go with a Ward Sorcerer. This is what I will be playing. Disappear again. So it takes mid-Sorc, but it puts the Ward feel on it. I figured because we're likely going to be playing for both sides, both lanes, if the Shadow lane is getting truly replaced and there is no Shadow, having the Ward allows you to effectively contest both lanes. And then what you're looking at is a little bit of aggressive, a little bit of control, but primarily a burst style deck that's going to rely on its wards to counteract the lethal pings. The wards will also counteract somebody just spamming a rage onto you. If you can get Keeper of Whispers down with Umaril, he is not removable from the game, because that last text which says summon him to the other lane silenced, he won't get silenced. He'll just stay a 6/3 guard. And then when he dies, he goes to the other lane as a 6/3 guard. A couple tech inclusions. I chose to put in Moon-Touched Guardian because the +2/+2 onto a warded creature is nice, or gaining guard ward is nice. It allows you to take a little more of a mid-range approach. Because I am anticipating you having to play for both lanes, I figured a Bishop of the Hour might be able to do some work here. If you don't have faith in the card, or if it's not working out, I'll replace it with Odinaire and Necromancer. and I put in Mistveil Enchanter. I've had a love-hate relationship with this card in the past. So it's a 4-cost 2/2 with Ward, summon +2/+0 if you have another creature with Ward. When I was building this deck, I had Odinarin in. It's actually really nice with Odinarin Necromancer, because if you have a warded creature on the board, then Odinarin Necromancer pulls back a 4/2 ward, which is really nice. Really, really nice. Other tech inclusions. I took Grimshield Brother to the Masters, and he performed admirably. I still think this is a highly underrated card, and we're running various items from Sentinel, Mace, and Crown Quartermaster to increase him, and with Drain, he is a way of winning a straight-up race. To take advantage of the library lane, we have Bolts and Ice Spikes. Negation kind of takes advantage. If I feel I need more negations, I might swap it to Ice Spikes, 3 negations. Or if a card isn't working, just cut it and put in a new negation. Ancano is a finisher. Emmerich is a finisher. I think this deck has some teeth to it. The addition of Grimshield Brother, I think, will cover the Drain slot. I might need to add a couple more Drain creatures. Maybe swap out Ald Valathi for... oh, I don't know. Barrowstalker. You could make that swap. Corrupted Shade could be put in for... if you make the switch for a Necromancer, then you could try putting in Little Girl, because if it dies as a 0/2, Odinarin Necromancer can pull that back. But if there's no Shadow Lane, you can't hide her, and I think there's no Shadow Lane. So that ultimately led to her being kept out. I've run Dark Seducer in these lists before. I'm anticipating there being a lot of silence and hard removal, as well as lethal ping, in which case it would be an 8 damage, 8 cost card that's going to die to most of your opponent's 3 costs. If I see a lot of Conscriptioner stuff, I might swap and put it in. But yeah, so that's what I've got. I think it looks relatively good. There's a lot of different ways you could try Sorcerer, a more aggressive build, possibly with Night Shadow and Squish the Wimpy. Using some of the earlier combos could be interesting. But I've long enjoyed Ward Sorcerer, and I think it is in a very good spot to try tackling this latest gauntlet. We're back. And with that said, I didn't want to build a conscription list. Conscription will be good. I think Ward Sorc can fit under a conscription deck. If we start running into the altar conscription, which has been seeing the rounds on ladder lately, I might put in some Shadowfen or just a way to deal with the altar. I think you can end the game before conscription is a problem. Yeah. It's been fun. I look forward to I'm going to start recording next week's videos here shortly. Thank you guys very much for the suggestions. I should say, I see them. I haven't seen any that we won't do. Though, I think Spider mentioned something regarding Banelord in Ebonheart. I might try it again. I put together, I think, 3 different lists over the time of me playing with Banelord, and I've never really found one that clicked. But we'll see. Maybe I could find something. Otherwise, you guys know the drill. Best of vibes to you. You guys have a great night. Best of luck in the gauntlet.